Thank you to everyone joining us for this on-demand session as part of Blue Line's first virtual symposium and product showcase. I'm Renee Franker, the editor of Blue Line magazine and your host of Blue Line, the podcast. I am honored to be joined by Brandon Police Service Chief Wayne Balcaen today to discuss the ins and outs of Community Mobilization Westman. It's the community initiative modeled after the Hub program in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. We're going to be chatting about how COVID-19 impacted the table talks and much more. Now, a little bit on the chief. He's a lifetime resident of Brandon, Manitoba, and was hired by the Brandon Police Service in 1990. During his career, he's worked in patrol, community policing, vice intelligence, the criminal investigations unit, and he's held various roles within the support services section. He took over as chief of police in 2017. Today, he is also co-chair of the Community Mobilization Westman Steering Committee. Chief, thank you so much for making the time and joining us virtually.
My pleasure to be here and talk to you today about Community Mobilization Westman. And it's kind of the cornerstone of our program is that we're not just for our city, urban area. We also take care of about a 27,000 square kilometer radius for our service area in Western Manitoba. So yeah, very important point.
Wow, yes, that's quite the coverage. I can't wait to learn more. So first off, I guess, as a member of the Community Mobilization Westman, congratulations on the Courage Award from Assiniboine Community College. Actually, it's a fairly recent announcement, so congrats.
Very much so. Thank you very much. It came as a surprise to us. It's mainly gone to individuals. So this time they chose us as a entity and framed it around the fact that we had the courage to do things differently in our community and put individual agendas aside for the greater benefit of the community.
Amazing. Well, I know the Brandon Police Service is known to have championed this community initiative, which, as I said in my introduction, takes after the Hub model in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. Correct. So this all began 5 years ago for you guys. Take us back there. You know, what was the impetus for setting this all into motion back in 2015?
Right. Actually, it was before that. It was It was in 2014, and the previous chief of police, Ian Grant, was well aware of the benefits of community mobilization and how it had benefited in Scotland, but also here in Canada and PA. And based on his research and wanting to do something different that's very impactful for the community, he reached out to a group of stakeholders, and that includes, I think 12 or 13 of our regular Hub table membership groups and organizations, and the greater community. And we had a get together at one of the local high schools where a number of the stakeholders were brought to the community, and this idea was brought forward. It sold very easily, and that kind of started it in our community. And each entity or part of our community mobilization was asked to send their best and brightest to the table so that we could have people that were really outside the box thinkers and wanted to help the community in a different way. So for once that was determined that we were going to move ahead, the Community Mobilization Westman was born and moved ahead with agreement from all of the stakeholders. This was without any sort of grants or seed money or anything else. Every organization just bore the costs themselves, whether it was human resource or physical space for meetings, and assigned personnel and staff. And it has been incredibly successful for our community.
Wow, that's fantastic. And thank you for correcting me. I didn't know it was actually even before. The right. Conversation started before 5 years ago. So that's excellent. You gave us a little bit of a tidbit of who's at the table, but maybe just elaborate on that. Who else is at this table? Because there's a number of social services, of course, like you mentioned, but the RCMP is part of it and the school division. So who else am I missing?
Correct. So it's important to make sure that all of those agencies are recognized. So we have primary agencies, and then we have a vast array of secondary agencies that will go to if those services are provided or needed during a certain intervention or a certain case. So right now, and I'm going to read it off so I don't miss anybody. At our table, we have ourselves at the Brandon Police Service, and we have the RCMP. It's important to note that both of ourselves and those entities, and why the RCMP is here is that we do cover the rural area as well. As I say, we're about 27,000 square kilometers radius of what we serve here. So there's ourselves, representative from the Brandon Correctional Center, Brandon School Division, Dakota Ojibwe Family Services, Prairie Mountain Health, which is our health authority here, probation services, as mentioned, the RCMP, our local Westman Child and Family Services, Samaritan House, which runs our food bank and our shelter for Safe and Warm, and Westman Family Services, which is employment insurance, the Alcohol Foundation of Manitoba, and the Brandon Friendship Center are primary agencies at the table.
Fantastic. Some good coverage then for sure.
Absolutely.
So, what's the latest news or update to Community Mobilization Westman? I think it was last year the group received funding to add in a full-time coordinator. So, what else is new?
Right. So that was very big news, and it's still an area that we're working on and expanding because we got the announcement from the government, and this goes back to the very beginning in 2015, where we came together as a collaborative and made sure that community mobilization went ahead. And the group at that time did it with a just do it attitude. They didn't wait for funding. They didn't wait for any sort of other infusion of dollars into the program. They just said, let's do it. So we'd been up and running for about 4.5 years. The government had an announcement where they wanted to fund community mobilization. So we were the recipient of $80,000. It allowed us to hire a full-time coordinator, get office space, and start into the process of longer-term care with clients as we move forward. Now, that was just in the beginning stages when COVID-19 hit the world. And so we had to do a stop and a reorg to keep our main focus, our main services going. That will be revisited very shortly once we get up and running. But yeah, for that's our biggest change, is that we're going to have kind of a secondary step. So right now we deal with people that we determine at acutely elevated risk or meet that threshold. Our team gathers the ones that are going to be providing the services. They'll go together, they'll do a door knock, introduce themselves and say, we're here to help. And we bring the services to them. That way they don't have to navigate all of the different areas to get the services that they require for whatever it is that they're at acutely elevated risk. And so once that's done and they're connected to services, that ends our involvement with the people, so that they're connected with services and they can get the help and move forward in life. The second step, and what we plan on doing, is if some people need some extra assistance and meetings and connection further with services, we can now provide that with a full-time coordinator, office space, and the like.
Amazing. I love all of that. The partnership, the coordination happening, the innovation. It's really forward thinking for sure. So congratulations to the whole team.
Thank you. I'll make sure I pass that along.
Please do, yeah. So I came across a really amazing stat as well that I wanted to touch on with you. So I understand that was, I think, 3.7% of the 651 cases that have come across the table since inception have been refused services. Very small. So that's huge. Is there any other stats that you want to share that really illustrate the success over the last little while, over the last few 5 years?
Well, I think You hit on it as well as just the primary numbers, the number of people, and what we call situations that we've dealt with. Over 500, over 400 meetings that this group has had. They meet twice a week, and they talk about the individual situations and the acutely elevated risk. And I really want to focus on that. We have such a small percentage of people that say they're not interested in our services. Most people are extremely thrilled when this team of professionals shows up at their house. And we've had stuff, individuals saying, so you're not here to arrest me. You're not here to apprehend my children. You're not here to remove me from my house. You're here to help me. And it's very impactful for these people, and it gives them some hope, and they look forward to what can happen in their life going forward. So it's very impactful that way. That's what I would look at. The other part is that's really important is our partnerships. We have formed not only this hub table, the primary groups, but as I said, the secondary groups that we often reach out to for help in situations, and the community connection. And it is really a different way of providing services. And what we found is it's got people out of their silos and working more collaboratively, connected with this group. A recent survey that we did through, actually, we contracted out to a group called Health in Common, a Manitoba company that did a social return on investment for us. And what they found is that all of the people involved in this collaborative have just said that they can pick up a phone, make a phone call to another agency, and it's not trying to navigate through that. They can talk to the other person on the hub table, and action can happen immediately. So those connections within the groups are great. So if I can touch, I just mentioned it, but the social return on investment, uh, I was shocked when we did this. We had this company do our social return on investment study, and it became very evident that the rather than just what we've seen anecdotally for the value, they put a physical value on it. So one for every dollar that is spent on community mobilization, there's a social return on investment of $4.52 for our community. So, when you get that sort of value, I would take that every single day.
That is incredible. That was just the type of number I was kind of looking for, because it just adds to that the conversation that everybody's having right now too, right? And looking for returns and budgets we're talking about. So that is huge. That's wonderful. Wow.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable. I know you talked about COVID-19 just a couple questions ago, but I'm curious, how else has the pandemic affected or impacted community mobilization, Westman? Have your gatherings gone virtual? I'm just curious.
Yeah. So I think, like everybody, our world was turned upside down in a matter of 2 or 3 days when all of the federal and then provincial health directives and orders and everything came crashing down at once. And like everywhere else, we were triaging it as it came in and looking at, how are we going to keep these services going. So I did meet with our director, and we talked about this because of the restrictions on social gatherings and number of people that could meet. We had to pare down our meetings here, and we actually did go to virtual meetings as well. So um, instead of meeting as a group, the team again collaborated, came together, and kept the same schedule of meeting every Tuesday and every Thursday. They just started doing the information session through secure email, and so that the group could still discuss cases and individuals of acutely elevated risk. This group, part of community mobilization, a big part of it is making sure that the confidentiality of clients and areas under the Freedom of Information, Protection of Privacy Act, both federal and provincial, as well as the provincial health acts, protection of health information, are all kept very confidential. So this group navigates through that and made sure that that was all kept. Instead of doing door knocks, we had some donated money that we had from the community, as well as some government funding. So we bought a number of pay-as-you-go phones and phone cards, and we would bring those to clients that were at acutely elevated risk, and then communicate via phone with them and have a team on speakerphone. So really, again, outside the box thinking for our group to go ahead with this and say, how are we still going to manage these services and connect people with services? And then they could use those phones to then communicate with the service providers. So it worked out very well. Right now, we're slowly starting to morph back into our regular routine, and we'll be back because we actually have traditionally pared down to one meeting a week in the summers rather than two, just because of holidays and time restraints. We're by September, we'll be back up to what we hope is our new norm.
Amazing. Wow. And I love the pay as you go phone component there. And it just sounds like the group really pivoted quite quickly to adapt to some difficult, challenging times that nobody was anticipating, at least in the capacity that we saw. So
Yeah,
awesome work.
this group did amazing. All the credit goes to them. They collaborate. They come forward with ideas, and we just say, do it. It's the just do it attitude.
Nice. Yeah. Actions, right? Actions speak. There you go. So, do you anticipate any other major changes or evolutions of Community Mobilization Westman in the near future that you're able to talk about? You might not be able to mention them, but I thought I'd ask.
No, it is something that I know the leadership team and the hub table will always look at innovations now. This has been new and exciting for us, but if we can do things better, we're going to continue to do things better. So one of the collaborations that we're working on is linking up with a national network for all of our data and statistics, so that we can not only compare Community Mobilization Westman, and we also have a group of Manitoba hubs or community mobilization groups that we meet with. But this will bring us more on a national level, so we compare to Saskatchewan or Ontario and what some of the primary factors are, the top risk factors, those sort of areas, and we can look at trends and maybe where we need to put some more energy into. So that's going to be another next step as we move forward. So, and again, if we can attend different seminars or learning opportunities, and there's chances for innovation, we will continue to do that.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to stay tuned then for sure. You mentioned, other hub models in Manitoba. So I know the program's plans for the future include expanding services and made possible through a funding grant from the province of Manitoba. So are you able to chat about any other hubs in the province that you've been consulted about starting?
Well, yeah, we have a number of them in other communities
Mm-hmm.
throughout the province, and I don't want to leave anybody out. But there's places in Portage, in Winnipeg, in Selkirk, Steinbach, in all of these different areas. So we meet twice yearly and uh, discuss all of the different areas and opportunities, challenges, areas that we can go. So in Manitoba, that network is kept very strong. It's coordinated by and very well, I must add, a lady in government by the name of Cassandra Dawkin, and she takes care of all of the coordination with this group, and make sure that we're staying focused and moving forward on things that are of interest to not only our communities but provincially as well.
Fantastic. That's awesome. So, along that vein, is there any top pieces of advice that you have for other smaller police services, maybe across Canada, who want to get started on championing a program like this in their area?
I would say I've touched on a few of them,
Yeah.
but it's very, very important to make sure you have your initial meeting and We brought in a professional at that first meeting. You may be familiar with the name Brent Kalinowski. He ran the program in PA, and Mr. Kalinowski came and did some consulting with us and got us up and running and spoke to the group and brought very impactful messages and real life challenges and what has happened in situations that he managed while he was in PA. So it was important to bring that forward, but to make sure that all of your stakeholders that will be at the table are on the same page and understand that the collaboration, although you have some initial inputs, have great outputs. Upstream, if you want to talk that way, is so we're doing the work upstream so that downstream there's not the same amount of work. So this group has ensured less police visits, less ambulance rides, less visits to the emergency center, less involvement of child protection agencies, just by dealing with individuals that meet that acutely elevated risk, and then they can be connected to services, so they're not constantly using the other services that are more emergent or urgent. So it really does have an impact. And I think that's that social return on investment that I talked about earlier, that for every dollar invested, you have $4.52 of savings in the future. So I would say make sure that you're all well informed and your leadership team is bought in. And then secondary is you send your best and your brightest, people that can have some authority within your organization to make decisions, and also that will think outside of the box and that are good people. People persons, that they'll communicate well with the others. They'll be team players. There's a lot of give and take in this. And I would say lastly is a very good understanding of the ability to share information respecting privacy legislations. So, and that is absolutely paramount, because you have to be able to share information and know that it's going to be protected. And legislation is in place to enable you to do that. You just have to make sure that you're navigating that properly.
Wise words, and probably something that the privacy component might not always be front and center when you're thinking about that community response. So very wise words from Chief. Thank you. All right, well, we've reached the end of our discussion today. Chief, thank you so much for sharing some insight on a incredibly efficient and clearly backed by some data. It's making huge, profound impacts in the community. So thank you for sharing more about Community Mobilization Westman and how it's dealt with the pandemic and the ins and outs. We look forward to following its journey as it continues to evolve, and wish you all the best. Congratulations on really making a difference and some forward thinking in the community policing aspect.
Thank you, Rennie. Appreciate that very much, and our pleasure. And yeah, we're looking forward to the continued journey as well. So thank you.
46 South Road.